I stared at the wedding invitation on my kitchen counter like it was a bill I did not agree to pay. Thick cardstock, gold foil, a venue in Napa, a dress code that basically translated to, spend money you do not have so I can look rich in photos. My stepsister Kendra had finally set a date, and my stepmother Diane was acting like the whole world should stop and clap. My dad was quieter than usual, the way he got when he knew something was wrong but did not want to name it. And me? I felt something old and heavy settling in my chest, because weddings do that. They drag family history out into the open and force you to look at it under bright lights. Kendra called me that night, not to invite me, not to ask how I was, not to talk like a normal person. She called to make sure I understood my role. "You are coming early, right?" she said. "I need help with last-minute things. And do not forget, I want a real gift, not something cheap." I let the silence hang for a second. I wanted her to feel it. Then I said, "I will bring a gift." My voice sounded calm, too calm. "That is how you know something is coming." Kendra laughed like she had won. "Good, because I have expensive taste." After I hung up, I stood in my tiny apartment and stared at the wall. My hands were steady, but my stomach felt tight. It was not because I was nervous about her wedding. It was because of what she had taken from me years ago, and what everyone in my family had pretended was just an accident. My mom died when I was 16, sudden. A car crash on a rainy afternoon, the kind of day where the sky looks normal until it is not. People told me life would go on. People always say that, like it is comforting. What they really mean is, your pain is inconvenient, so please learn to carry it quietly. My dad tried, in his own way. He was not a cruel man. He was just a tired man who hated conflict, the kind of man who would rather bleed slowly than risk a loud argument. About a year after my mom died, he met Diane. She had a polished smile and a voice that always sounded reasonable. She had one daughter, Kendra, who was a year younger than me, and already trained to take up space like it belonged to her. They moved in. The house changed fast. My mom's photos disappeared from the hallway. My mom's favorite chair became too worn and got replaced. My mom's old paperwork system in the home office got organized. Diane loved that word. Organized. It sounded helpful. It sounded responsible. It sounded like you should be grateful. I tried to be. I told myself it was better than living in a house full of grief. I told myself blending families was hard and I needed to be mature. But Kendra did not blend. She conquered. She wore my sweaters without asking and shrugged when I got upset. She borrowed my makeup and returned it broken. She walked into my room like it was a shared closet. If I protested, Diane would tilt her head and say, "Do not be territorial. We are family now." Family. Another word that sounded good until it was used like a weapon. The college fund was my mom's idea. She started it when I was born. It was not huge, but it was steady. Every birthday, every holiday, every little extra amount she could spare, she put something away. She told me once, "No matter what happens, you will have choices." After she died, my dad showed me the account. He was sitting at the dining table with papers spread out, looking like someone drowning in responsibility. "This is for you," he said. "Your mom wanted this." I remember feeling relief so sharp it almost hurt, like maybe the world had not completely fallen apart. Then Diane stepped in, not with malice, with logic. "It is wonderful she planned," Diane said, pouring coffee like she was hosting a talk show. "But we should be practical. College is expensive, and households are expensive too. We have to manage everything carefully." My dad nodded. "We will keep it safe," he said. "It will be there when you need it." Those words mattered. I repeated them to myself for years. Safe. There. When you need it. When I was 18, I got into a state university. Not glamorous, but solid. I worked hard. I applied for scholarships. I picked a major with job prospects, not dreams. I did everything right because after losing my mom, being responsible felt like the only thing I could control. The summer before college, I asked my dad about the fund. I was in the kitchen, trying to sound casual. So, when do we transfer the money for tuition? Diane's spoon stopped stirring. My dad did not look at me. He said, "We should talk about that." That sentence is always the beginning of bad news. They sat me down like it was an intervention. Diane's hands folded neatly. My dad's shoulders slumped. Diane spoke first. "There were some expenses," she said. "Some unexpected things." "What things?" I asked. My dad cleared his throat. "The roof needed repairs. The car had problems. We had medical bills." Diane added, "And Kendra needed help too. It is hard for her to focus when she is stressed." I stared at them. "So you used my college fund?" My dad lifted a hand like he could stop the moment from turning real. "We plan to replace it," he said. Diane nodded quickly. "We will rebuild it. Family helps family." I felt heat rush up my neck. "How much is left?" Diane hesitated. That tiny pause told me everything. My dad said, "Not much." My mouth went dry. "Define not much." He whispered, "A few thousand." My legs felt weak. Years of savings, my mother's promise, gone. Not stolen in a dramatic way, not taken by a stranger, taken by slow decisions and soft excuses and the idea that I would be understanding because I always was. I did not scream. I did not throw anything. I just sat there, shaking, while Diane talked about sacrifice and hardship like she was the victim. Kendra walked in halfway through, grabbed a soda, and said, "What is going on?" Diane smiled at her. "Nothing, honey. Just adult stuff." Adult stuff, like draining my future, like deciding my mother's gift was community property. I left the next day and went to my friend's house. I took out loans. I worked 2 jobs. I missed parties, missed sleep, missed the version of myself that believed family protected you. Kendra, meanwhile, lived like nothing happened. New phone, new clothes, bragging about nails and lashes and weekend trips. She did not pay for it directly, but she benefited from the way Diane and my dad treated money like it flowed toward her by default. Over the years, my dad tried to patch things with words. "I am sorry," he would say. "I did not realize it would hit you like this." Like this. Like I was being dramatic for grieving something that was mine. Diane never apologized. Diane reframed. "We all had to adjust," she would say. "You turned out fine." Fine. Another word people use when they want you to stop talking. I graduated anyway. I built my life anyway. And I learned something important. Some people count on your silence as part of their plan. After graduation, I kept my distance. I visited on holidays, stayed polite, left early. My dad would look relieved just because there was no tension. Diane would act warm, like we were close. Kendra would talk about herself nonstop and never once ask how I managed to make it through college without the fun she helped drain. Then Kendra got engaged. She posted a ring video with dramatic music. Diane called me crying happy tears. My dad texted, "Please come, it would mean a lot." I almost said no. I almost protected my peace. But then I saw Kendra's registry link. It was wild. Luxury kitchen appliances, designer bedding, cash funds labeled honeymoon upgrade, and dream home down payment. The nerve of it made me laugh, but it was not a funny laugh. It was the kind of laugh you make when you realize someone has lived their whole life taking and still feels entitled to more. A week later, Diane invited me to lunch. She chose a cute cafe and wore a soft pink sweater like she was playing the role of kind mother. She asked about work. She complimented my hair. She waited until my guard dropped just a little. Then she leaned forward and said, "I know Kendra can be intense, but weddings are expensive. It would be a blessing if you could contribute something meaningful." I stared at her. "You mean like money?" Diane smiled. "I mean support." I said, "I supported myself through college, without the fund my mother left." Diane's smile twitched. "We are not reopening that." I felt calm again. That cold calm. "I am not reopening it," I said. "I am living in it, because it never closed for me." Diane sighed like I was exhausting. What do you want? An apology? It was years ago. I said, I want the truth acknowledged. I want you to stop acting like I owe Kendra anything. Diane's eyes narrowed. Kendra is your sister. I said, Kendra is the reason I had to take out loans. Diane leaned back, offended. You are being bitter. I nodded slowly. Maybe. Or maybe I finally see things clearly. That lunch ended quickly. Diane paid the bill like she was doing charity and left with her chin high. That night my dad called. His voice was small. Can you please not make this hard? He asked. I almost laughed. I did not make it hard, I said. I lived through what you allowed. He went quiet. Then he said, She is getting married. Just let it be nice. Let it be nice. That was always the request. Let it be nice for them, even if it cost me. I looked at my calendar. I looked at my student loan balance. I looked at the wedding date circled in gold on the invitation. And I made a decision that surprised even me. I would go to the wedding, I would smile, I would play the part, and I would give Kendra a gift she would never forget. Not a cheap gift, not a petty gift, a gift that matched exactly what she had done to me. Because if she wanted a moment, I was going to give her a moment. And if my family wanted nice, I was going to show them what nice looks like when it comes with a receipt. The next day, I opened a folder on my laptop. I titled it, Wedding Gift. Then I pulled up my loan statements. I pulled up old emails. I pulled up every message Diane ever sent me about family and support. I started gathering proof, not because I wanted drama, but because I wanted control. Kendra thought this wedding would be her spotlight. She had no idea I was bringing the lighting. And the best part was, she had basically demanded it. She wanted a real gift. She was going to get one. I kept everything quiet for weeks. I did not argue in family group chats. I did not post anything petty. I did not hint. I just prepared. Because I learned the hard way that people like Diane and Kendra do not respond to feelings. They respond to consequences. I requested old statements from the bank my mom used. I pulled my credit reports. I checked my student loan history. I opened a spreadsheet and listed every semester, every payment, every interest charge that grew because my college fund was drained. Then I did something that made my hands tremble, not from fear, but from the weight of finally doing it. I called the bank and asked for archived records tied to my name and the custodial account my dad had managed after my mom died. The representative was polite, professional, and careful. She confirmed what I suspected. The college fund was never accidentally used. There were multiple transfers, repeated, planned, organized, that word again. I asked for documentation. I asked for dates and amounts. I asked for the type of withdrawal and where it went. My voice stayed steady, but my stomach felt like it was turning over. When the records arrived, I stared at them for a long time. It was not just one withdrawal for an emergency roof. It was a pattern, a slow bleed. Tuition-sized chunks moved out and into household accounts. And I could see one transfer that lined up with Kendra's first car. I remember that car. I remember Diane standing in the driveway smiling like she had earned it. I remember Kendra squealing and hugging my dad and saying, I knew you would not let me down. At the time, I thought it was a gift from my dad. Now I realized it was also a gift from my mother, stolen through paperwork and silence. I printed everything and put it into a neat folder, not messy, not emotional, clean, professional. Because if I walked in angry, they would call me dramatic. If I walked in calm, they would have nowhere to hide. 2 weeks before the wedding, Diane called again. She sounded sweet, which always meant she wanted something. Kendra is stressed, she said. She is doing so much planning. It would mean a lot if you helped with a few final costs. I asked, What costs? Diane hesitated like she was calculating how to make it sound reasonable. A few vendor balances. Nothing huge. Maybe you could cover the floral upgrade. Kendra has a vision. A vision. I could not believe it. I said, I am bringing a gift. Diane's tone sharpened. A gift is not the same as support. I said, you are right. A gift is voluntary. Diane went quiet. Then she tried a softer approach. Do you really want to go into the wedding with tension? I answered. I am not bringing tension. I am bringing clarity. She hung up soon after. The week of the wedding, I arrived early like Kendra demanded. The venue was beautiful, which made everything feel even more surreal. Rolling vineyards, white chairs lined up perfectly, staff moving like quiet shadows. Kendra was in a bridal suite surrounded by friends who laughed too loudly at everything she said. When she saw me, she did not hug me. She scanned my outfit like a judge. Then she smiled. Good, she said. You can take these boxes to the welcome table. And do not forget the card for my gift. I want people to see you were generous. I looked her in the eye and said, they will. The night before the wedding, there was a rehearsal dinner. That is where Kendra really performed. She stood up and tapped her glass and gave a speech about how hard she had worked to create her dream life. She thanked her mom for always supporting her. She thanked my dad for treating her like his real daughter. People clapped. Diane dabbed tears again. My dad smiled, but it looked painful. I sat there with my fork in my hand, thinking about my real mother, and the fun she built that Kendra just praised my dad for redirecting. That was the moment I decided I was done protecting them from the truth. The morning of the wedding, I placed my folder into a clean white envelope. Then I put that envelope into a larger gift box. On top, I placed a small, tasteful item from Kendra's registry. Something safe, something normal, a distraction, because I was not there to cause chaos. I was there to deliver a message. The ceremony was late afternoon. Guests filled the seats. The sun hit the vineyard like a movie scene. Kendra walked down the aisle like she owned the world. Her smile was wide and perfect and hungry for attention. I watched Diane too. Diane looked proud. Not of Kendra getting married, but of being seen. Some people do not want love. They want an audience. The ceremony ended. Everyone cheered. Music started. The reception flowed into speeches and dancing and expensive wine. Then came the gift table moment. Kendra made it a whole event. She wanted to open gifts in front of people, like a live show. She called it sharing gratitude. It was really about control. She wanted everyone to see who gave what. She wanted to feel important. Kendra stood on a small platform with her new husband beside her. People gathered close with phones out. Diane stood near the front, smiling like this was her crowning achievement. My dad stood behind her, hands folded, eyes tired. Kendra started opening gifts. She squealed at the expensive ones. She held up cash cards like trophies. She read names out loud and said, "This is a good one," or, "Finally," like she was grading love. Then she reached my box. She lifted it and smirked. "Oh, look," she said loudly. My stepsister actually came through. People turned to look at me. I kept my face calm. I wanted my expression to be boring. The gift needed to speak, not my emotions. Kendra opened the box, pulled out the small registry item, and her smile grew. "See," she said, showing it off. "I told you she would not embarrass me." Then her fingers touched the envelope underneath. She frowned. "What is this?" Diane leaned forward, curious. My dad stiffened, like his body recognized danger before his mind admitted it. Kendra opened the envelope. She pulled out the first page and glanced at it. Her smile changed. Not vanished, not yet. It just tightened. She flipped to the next page, then the next. Her eyes moved faster. Her breathing changed. People around her started to sense something. The laughter faded into quiet confusion. Kendra looked up at me and forced a laugh. "What is this?" she asked, but her voice sounded thin. I stepped forward just enough so people could hear me clearly without yelling. I said, "That is your wedding gift, the truth." Diane's face went sharp immediately. "This is not the time," she snapped. I kept my voice even. "This is the exact time. She wanted a real gift. I gave her one." Kendra's husband looked between us, confused. "Babe, what is it?" he asked her. Kendra did not answer. She kept staring at the papers like they were a mirror showing her something ugly. Diane reached for the documents. I lifted my hand calmly. Not aggressive, just a boundary. Do not, I said. The word landed hard. Diane froze. My dad finally spoke, voice low. Please, he said like he was begging me to stop. I looked at him and said, You asked me for nice for years. This is the nicest way I can do it, because I am not screaming. I am not ruining anything. I am just handing out what you hid. Kendra's voice rose. You are trying to humiliate me, she hissed. I replied, No, you humiliated me when you benefited from my college fund and never once acknowledged it. Diane jumped in quickly, aiming at the crowd. This is a misunderstanding, she said loudly. She has always been resentful. That was Diane's favorite strategy. If she could label me, she could avoid the facts. I nodded once and said, It is documented. Transfers from my custodial college account into household accounts. Dates, amounts, and a transfer that matches the week Kendra got her first car. The crowd went quiet in a way that felt heavy and real. Someone whispered, College fund? Kendra's husband's face changed, not angry at me, but alarmed at her. Kendra, he said, did you know about this? Kendra snapped, No, too fast. Diane said, We are family. Things get pooled. It was complicated. I said, It was not complicated for me when I signed loan papers at 18 because my money was gone. Diane's eyes narrowed. So what do you want? To ruin her wedding? I answered, I want accountability. I want the story to stop being rewritten. Kendra looked like she might cry, but it was not remorse. It was rage mixed with fear, because for the first time in her life, she could not charm her way out. She shoved the papers back into the envelope and said, Get out. You are disgusting. I did not move. I said, I am leaving after I say one more thing. I turned to the people closest, then back to Diane and my dad. I am not asking for a public apology. I am not asking for sympathy. I am telling you that I know exactly what happened. And I am telling you that if anyone in this family ever again asks me for money, or calls me selfish, or tries to guilt me into supporting Kendra's lifestyle, I will not stay quiet. I will show these documents to whoever needs to see them. My dad's eyes looked wet. He whispered my name like he was a child caught doing something wrong. Diane looked furious, but also nervous, because she realized I had leverage now. Kendra's husband took the envelope from her hand gently and said, We are talking about this later. Kendra snapped, Do not. But he held it like it mattered. That was the real consequence. Not the crowd. Not the awkward silence. It was the fact that her perfect story had a crack, and her new husband had seen it. I walked away calmly. I did not run. I did not cry in the room. I went outside where the air was cool and the vineyard smelled like earth and night. My hands were shaking now, but my chest felt lighter. 10 minutes later, my dad followed me out. He looked older than he had that morning. He said, Why did you do it like that? I stared at him and said, Because you never listened when I did it quietly. He swallowed hard. I was trying to keep peace. I answered, Peace for you, debt for me. Diane came out next, still angry. You are unforgivable, she said. I looked at her and said, You drained money my dead mother saved for my education. You do not get to call me unforgivable. Diane opened her mouth, but nothing came out, because there was no clean excuse left. The wedding continued without me. Music started again. People returned to their tables. They would tell the story later in pieces, depending on who they wanted to protect. But the truth was already planted. It would not disappear. A week after the wedding, my dad called and asked to meet alone. He looked broken when he arrived. He did not yell. He did not defend Diane. He finally said the sentence I waited years to hear. I should have protected you. I nodded. Yes. He asked, What do you want now? I said, I want you to acknowledge it in writing. And I want you to stop funding Kendra's life with anyone else's future." He agreed. Diane did not speak to me for months. Kendra blocked me on everything, then unblocked me just to send one message: "You are dead to me." I read it and felt nothing, because the version of me that begged for approval was already gone. Here is what I learned. Some people call you difficult when you stop being useful. Some families call it love when it is actually control. And sometimes the best wedding gift you can give is a truth that forces everyone to grow up. If you made it to the end, tell me this in the comments. If someone stole your future and called it family, what would you do when the moment finally came to speak up?